Not only is the war against Christopher Columbus anti-historical, but it is a war against Christianity and Western civilization itself. What's up, guys? Vincedao here. Happy Columbus Day. No, it's not Indigenous Peoples Day. Why? Because we live in a civilization built by the European settlers and not the natives. Hence why you live under a roof with running water and electricity. Crazy thing, I know. And that's why we celebrate Columbus and not the indigenous people. If you're mad at that, then go hunt buffalo with a bow and arrow or something. I don't know. But if you live in North America and you woke up to grocery store bought food and functioning electricity, then feel free to celebrate Christopher Columbus and not the indigenous peoples. If you went outside and didn't witness mass ritual human sacrifice, then feel free to say Happy Columbus Day and not Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. All right, now that they're all mad at me, and for the record, that was all just jokes, of course. It was all just satire. Of course it was. We will get into the topic of today's video, which is the war against Christopher Columbus. We all know that in recent years, the left has waged brutal revisionist warfare against Columbus. They say he was genocidal, he was a slaver, he was this evil mass murderer, and sadly, many of the attacks have worked. Indigenous Peoples Day is now mainstream, and so is the idea that Christopher Columbus was a psychotic murderer. Now, the reason conservatives have lost this debate is the same reason they lose the debate over Confederate statues. We basically just resort to saying, but it's history, without offering any real argument against the idea that the people we are defending were just evil and terrible. So it comes off as a bunch of rambling, angry people saying, no, but history, when the other side is saying, okay, you're literally defending slavery and genocide. You see why that's a losing argument? You see why conservatives tend to lose the culture war when all they say is history, but accept the left-wing definition of history? Well, the good news is that if you're a conservative, you don't have to make that argument, because the left-wing narrative surrounding Christopher Columbus is completely false. The primary source evidence that has led left-wing historians to reach this supposed conclusion about him being a murderer and a slaver is incredibly flimsy and repudiated by the overwhelming consensus of other primary source evidence. I could talk about this myself, but I think there's a lot of great people who already did. So our good friend Monster Z recently made a video for American Virtue. Be sure to subscribe to American Virtue, by the way, which details some of the claims about Columbus's voyages and the supposed genocide and slavery that happened there. So cue the video.
Revisionists have claimed that Columbus's first encounter with the natives was one of superiority and mockery, that he spoke proudly of how easily they could be conquered and that they would make good slaves. In fact, Columbus's detailing of his first encounter with the natives reads as follows. I that we might form great friendship, for I knew that they were a people who could be more easily freed and converted to our holy faith by love than by force. In fine, they took all and gave what they had with good will. They should be good servants and intelligent, for I observed that they quickly took in what was said to them, and I believe that they will easily be made Christians, as it appeared to me that they had no religion. I, our Lord being pleased, will take hence at the time of my departure 6 natives for your highness, so that they may learn to speak. The two key aspects to be taken away from this excerpt of Columbus's journal are a mutual friendliness and goodwill between the natives and Columbus's crew, as well as a clear desire to convert the natives not by or in any form of malice or subjugation, but through education and cooperation. The phrase, they should be good servants, not meaning that they would be good slaves as many have suggested, but that they would take quickly to serving God if introduced to Christianity.
Well, there you have it. That is the only supposed evidence that liberals have to prove any of the things that they say about Columbus's voyages, and it's completely false. But some people will bring up what happened later. They say, okay, maybe not the voyages, but he was this terrible maniac as governor of Hispaniola. But again, totally unsubstantiated. I remember seeing Michael Knowles explain this very well back when I was in high school, and I still think it rings true today. So, to give credit where it's due and not just steal his take, I will let Mr. Knowles himself explain it. Here you go.
Anti-Columbus crusaders in recent years have focused most of their attention on a document uncovered in 2006 that allegedly exposes the discoverer of the Americas as a monster. Headlines at the time of the document's discovery in 2006 include, quote, "Lost document reveals Columbus as tyrant of the Caribbean. Columbus exposed as iron-fisted tyrant who tortured his slaves. Christopher Columbus was actually punished for being a horrible person. Christopher Columbus was evil." Now, the news articles quote the most lurid and damning verses from this uncovered document, but they're all strangely silent on the nature of the document itself. Now, because virtually all of these articles stay mum on the question of what exactly this document is and who wrote it, I had to do a little bit of research to find out that the report's author is none other than Francisco Bobadilla, Christopher Columbus's chief political rival and the man who successfully usurped power from him as governor of the West Indies. This would be like saying that a lost document from Walter Mondale proves that Ronald Reagan was a terrible president and a tyrant. Now, indeed, Christopher Columbus spent years of his life refuting the document as a vicious libel, and he turned down, as a matter of principle, lucrative agreements with the Spanish crown that did not correct for history what he regarded as calumny. This isn't to say that Columbus was guiltless in the Spanish treatment of natives, but the left's claims of Columbus's special monstrosity are without foundation. Even Bartolomé de las Casas, the first resident bishop of the Americas and the most vociferous defender of the indigenous islanders against Spanish slavery and brutality, admired Christopher Columbus to the end. He met Columbus. He expressed as much in his History of the Indies.
So it turns out the entire basis of this war against Columbus is completely wrong. So then the only question becomes, why are they waging this war of lies and slander? Well, let's go back to Monsieur Z. I think I found the reason.
Not only did this leave Columbus to grow up in an age of reduced trading opportunities, but it also struck a spiritual chord with him. He would later write of his fortune-finding expedition, quote, "I urge your highness to spend all the profits of this my enterprise on the conquest of Jerusalem." A contemporary scholar of the time, albeit one who was liable to be very biased against Columbus, once wrote, "He observes the fasts of the church most faithfully, confessed and made communion often, read the canonical offices like a churchman or member of a religious order, hated blasphemy and profane swearing, and was most devout to Our Lady and the Seraphic Father St. Francis. He seemed very grateful to God for the benefits received from the divine hand. God made me the messenger of a new heaven and a new earth, of which he spoke in the Apocalypse of John after having spoken of it through the mouth of Isaiah. And it was he who showed me the spot where to find it." This new land became nearly sacred to Columbus. In his mind, it was the instrument that would propel Christendom to global dominance and set the stage for the biblical end times.
Oh, now it makes sense. Do you see what I'm seeing? What this revisionist history is really about is a war against Christianity and Western civilization. Why? Because Christianity is correct, and the civilizations structured around Christianity have been the most just, the most righteous, and the most exceptional civilizations in human history. Hence, it is no surprise that a bunch of mediocre, unexceptional people with a passionate hatred for exceptional things would seek to tear down the forefathers of exceptional civilizations, whether that be Christopher Columbus or George Washington. As cliche as it is to say, the enemies of Columbus really are indeed unimpressive losers. Hence why they relentlessly try to tear down the legacy of a great and exceptional man to bolster their own sense of morality and impressiveness. But here is the undeniable reality that they cannot get around. Firstly, they are neither moral nor impressive. Secondly, even if Columbus was not a perfect person, and even acknowledging that many of the European colonists who came after Columbus did commit atrocities, the idea that the so-called indigenous civilizations who occupied the Americas before Columbus were any morally superior to the Europeans is completely laughable. A mere Google search can tell us about the prominence of slavery, mass murder, and human sacrifice among these supposedly innocent, peace-loving native civilizations. Furthermore, here is the undeniable reality. Whatever you think about how we got here, America is in a far better place because of European colonization. And getting back to my first point, if you have running water, food on the table, and high-speed internet, then maybe you ought to be humble enough to celebrate Columbus Day and not Indigenous Peoples Day. So say it with me, kids. Happy Columbus Day. All right, folks, that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you're new, be sure to subscribe, okay? You like this video? You thought it was epic? You thought it was compelling? Then hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell. Welcome to the channel. Before we go, remember that we have merch. Okay, great stuff at www.thevincedao.com. Link in the description. Again, that's www.thevincedao.com. All right, I'm done here. See you guys later. Alpha moves only. Happy Columbus Day. God bless and peace.